Good day, everyone. Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, welcome. Please do make sure that you like, comment, and subscribe. That's if you want, after you like what you're seeing. So today I'll be talking about vaginismus and how different African beliefs in many African cultures contribute to vaginismus. And because there's lack of education about vaginismus, it may still happen, and it's causing a lot of harm. So I'll be paraphrasing what Gianna Jara said on TikTok, who is a biomedical engineer. Vaginismus happens when the muscles surrounding the vaginal opening tighten or spasm involuntary, meaning you cannot control it. Whenever something tries to enter the vagina, that could be a tampon, a finger, or during sex. This tightening makes penetration painful, difficult, or sometimes completely impossible. But here's the thing, vaginismus doesn't just appear out of nowhere. It's not simply a case of tight muscles or body refusing to cooperate. It's something deeper, a story written into the nervous system. It's a reflex, not a conscious choice. A body's memory, not a flaw. Essentially, vaginismus develops when the body has learned through stress, trauma, or certain life experiences that the vaginal area is not a safe place. The vaginal opening is surrounded by a dense network of nerves and pelvic floor muscles. These nerves don't just sense touch, they respond to what the brain perceives as safe or threatening. When the brain links that area with danger, the muscles tighten like armor. So this can happen or because by different situations, like maybe purity culture or any other teaching that may cause fear on like sex and things like that. Also, it could be like rape or being sexually assaulted and many other things. Now that we know what vaginismus is, we go on to the 4 beliefs in African cultures that contribute to vaginismus. The African saying, whatever happens in the home stays in the home. So it's known differently in many different African languages, but in Swahili it's called Dibi Dendlu, meaning the dirt of the home. It's often used to silence serious situations like rape, especially when the perpetrator is a family member or the head of the household. The family usually decides to handle the matter privately, leaving the perpetrator unpunished and the victim without medical or psychological support. You might think this doesn't happen anymore, but in some homes it does. Even though there are laws to protect situations like this from happening, many homes still have this mindset. This mindset formed one of the foundations of many African cultures. When someone is raped by a man in the family, often the father, the family tries to protect the man's dignity and reputation. The fear of tarnishing the family name outweighs the victim's pain. So this issue is silenced, and in some cases, it even happens again. This kind of trauma, especially when experienced by young girls, can lead to vaginismus. Rape and sexual trauma can cause a person's body to tighten up as a defense mechanism. Beyond that, it leaves deep emotional scars, shame, guilt, hatred towards one's own body, and difficulty caring for oneself. Sadly, this culture of silence still exists in some homes today. The belief that a woman must submit to a man. In many African cultures, it's believed that the man is the head of the household and the woman must submit. Now, I personally believe that the man should lead and the woman should submit, but not in the way that is practiced culturally. In traditional African settings, women had no voice. They served men while kneeling down, avoiding eye contact, and were expected to be silent. The man was treated like a king in every way you could think, while the woman was treated like a servant or even a slave. In such environments, women are expected to sexually satisfy their husbands regardless of how they felt. Even when pain was present, like in cases of vaginismus, where vaginal muscles contract involuntarily, the man's needs were prioritized, and the woman was taught that her pain didn't matter. At least that's what she thought. And that if she couldn't perform, it was her fault, because she has to fulfill the man's desires. Seeking medical help wasn't even an option. because there's no education about such things. This belief system caused deep physical and emotional harm. Many women endured intercourse in pain because they've been conditioned to serve, not to be understood. And because education about vaginismus is rare, the cycle still continues today. The reed dance. The reed dance is a popular traditional ceremony in many African cultures. It's meant to celebrate girls who have kept themselves pure. Now, I'm not saying the ceremony itself causes vaginismus, but some parts of it can. Before, only virgins could participate. To confirm this, older women would physically test girls to see if they were virgins. The process was invasive and humiliating. Young girls would be examined publicly with their legs forced open. Those who passed were marked with a small white dot on their foreheads, while those who failed walked away in shame. Even though today the reed dance has become more accepting and less strict, the trauma from such practices has lasting effect. Being exposed and handled that way at a young age can create fear, body shame, and a physical response to tightness or pain during intimacy, all signs linked to vaginismus. The last one is being married off to an older man. Now, I know this happens in many other cultures, but it still happens today. Even if it's less common, some young girls are forced to leave school to marry older men who are rich, chosen for them by the family. For a young woman, this can be terrifying. She may not know the man and may not be emotionally or mentally ready and is expected to perform her duties as a wife immediately. The fear, pressure, and lack of consent can cause deep trauma and physical responses like vaginismus. Even when the man tries to be patient, the fear and anxiety can make intimacy painful or impossible. The psychological effects go beyond vaginismus, but this condition is a very real outcome of such forced arrangements. These are just few examples of how African purity culture and purity culture as a whole, when mixed with silence, fear, control, can lead to both emotional and physical suffering. Many of these practices were rooted in protecting family honor and enforcing morality, but in reality, they often silenced victims and ignored the deep wounds being created. Now, I know that purity culture is also in the church. Now, since most of my content is Christian based, I will make a video on the things I do not agree with about purity culture and why biblical purity and purity culture are very different. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed, please do stay along for these series and please do like, comment, and subscribe for more content like this.